It's my pleasure to be here today in Kings Mountain, North Carolina, and we're with Joe Hedden. Joe Hedden is very special to a lot of people, but to us at Western Carolina, he is particularly important because he was a member of the first band at Western Carolina University, then Western Carolina Teachers College. He was also a band director for many years in Kings Mountain. He's going to go into the North Carolina Band Directors Hall of Fame this November. Joe's from Sylva, North Carolina. He was born on July 3rd, 1921. And so this July, that'll make you 89 years old. Is that correct?
That's right. Just a few more days.
But what we really want to do is talk about some things maybe that most people would know about Western Carolina's early days in band. And can you just talk a little bit about what it was like when the band started and who started it?
I remember the one thing that really stood out in my mind was all those nights that we would have things at school, and I was a day student. So instead of staying in the dormitory, I went home. And we'd have a dance band practice maybe till 12 o'clock at night. Then I'd have to go down on the bridge and start thumbing.
To Sylva.
To Sylva, or either walk 8 miles.
And you grew up in Sylva.
Yes.
And
no band.
No band in Sylva.
I've never been in a band in my life. I just always wanted to be in a band. And every once in a while I'd pick up a horn and get back there and play it with the kids so I could say really that I had played in a band. But
well, tell us how you got started. You were telling me a little while ago about how you started playing it.
Louis Enlow hocked his saxophone to my uncle for some amount of money, and so my uncle arranged for George Tracy, the professor of music there at Western, to teach me how to play that saxophone. And I went up there and got one lesson. I went with my uncle on Saturday. He owned a bookstore, and he wanted me to be a musician, so he made arrangements for George Tracy to teach me how to play that saxophone. And every Saturday I'd go up there and take lessons, and then go back home and practice. Well, Louis found out I was using his horn, and he didn't like that a little bit, so he paid off his loan and took the horn. So my uncle went to Asheville to a pawn shop and looked for a horn of some sort, and they found a clarinet. Well, everything was fine about it. It worked. Except it was in the key of C, and it wouldn't play the music right. So I got to play bell parts and violin parts and all sorts of things on a C clarinet because there wasn't any music written for it. Oh, and it was Albert system. I wore out 2 Albert system clarinets before I ever got a BAME system. Albert system just had about 15 keys on it. And I believe you were a clarinet player. It had the octave key went around up on top. You could always tell a Albert system by watching that little key on top. And so finally, Mr. Tracy said, we just need to get you on a BAME, on a B flat instead of key of C. So they went back to Asheville and shopped around. Came back with another clarinet in the B flat, but it was still Albert system. Had that little key up on top, and so I played clarinets like that for quite a while. Mr. Tracy finally bought a Pan American clarinet. They've got enough money together to buy one.
Well, where did you practice?
At home.
Or what about at school when you at Western?
Oh, I had a studio, all my own studio. I taught music all day long, and I was assistant to the band director, Mr. Tracy. I was his assistant, and I'd grade papers and teach a class. If he wasn't there, I'd check a roll and let him go.
Like a real band director.
Yeah.
Now, did you do you remember anything about the beginnings of the band? We're pretty convinced that Mr. Tracy started the band.
I think he really started it, and I think somewhere along the line he must have learned to play a little on the bass clarinet, because he had a bass clarinet that he'd let me play once in a while if they needed a bass clarinet part in a number they was playing. He'd put me on the bass clarinet.
Well, I understand when the band started, it, of course, wasn't a marching band to start with, was it? Was
No,
it more a concert
there
band?
wasn't enough people there to march. There was only about 15, 20 people in the band most of the time. Occasionally they could get some other students to come in and carry a horn and make it 20,
Yeah.
25 maybe, but they weren't all blowing horns.
Well, when did you get the idea that maybe you needed to do a halftime show?
Well, that was when we got the new gymnasium, the stone building.
That would be Brees.
The Brees building, and Miss Reed came
Margaret
there.
Reed.
Margaret Reed came there, and she started teaching the girls PE and swimming. They had a swimming pool in there.
Still do.
I used the swimming pool some myself, and so Louis Enlow invited me down to Blue Ridge, Georgia, for a weekend, and he taught me how to twirl a baton. And that's one thing I didn't know a thing in the world about, was baton twirling. So he taught me that. I came back and talked to Miss Reed about it, and she agreed that it'd be a good project. We got about 25 girls in a class, and they got credit for it, baton twirling. And they did all kinds of fancy strutting and stuff.
And you taught them all that?
Yeah. And they'd throw it around their body and up through the fingers and all that stuff. And they got pretty good at it. And in the meantime, we got up to about 25 band members. It's all in that picture. I've decided to take these baton twirlers, about 25 of them, about 25 band members. That put you 50-piece band out there.
Still the same concept we use today.
So I didn't know much about marching, having never been in a band, but I'd studied in books and how you could march down to the middle of a circle and then do about face and come out while people still going in. And that was the main formation we did, and marched down the end of the field. and countermarched and came back through the ranks, you know, a regular old timey countermarch. And we stood up there on the, like modern day bands do, stood up there on the end of the field and played the whole march. There, that killed a lot of time. And
or were the students excited about it?
Everybody was excited. They'd never seen a Western Carolina band before do that. And the girls had on their short skirts and all, and kick your feet up pretty high. It was a pretty good show.
I guess so. Now, where did you perform? Where was the stadium then?
Well, they got buildings there where all the fields were back in those days. Did you ever know where the Indian Mountain was?
Yeah.
I got caught one night driving my A model over that Indian Mountain. But it was a lot of fun. But the football field was out there in those days, and right close to that Indian Mountain.
Then they later moved it on to campus where Hunter Library is now.
Yeah.
That's when I went to school. When Chris and I, we both marched on that field. Well, did you, do you remember any of the music that you might have played during that time?
Promotion band book was, I can't remember a single tune out of it because nobody ever heard it.
But both Matt and John also went to Western Carolina. So there's a lot of band directors in this room with music degrees from Western Carolina. We're back on camera now, and I wanted to talk a little bit about where you grew up. Now, you grew up in Silva, is that correct?
That's right, but they did never have a band. All the time I went through the Silva schools, they never had a band.
But fortunately for you, you had George Tracy up the road who was willing to teach you to play a band instrument.
He started me out on the saxophone, and then we switched to the Albert system clarinets and key of C and B flat. And,
now, were you born in Jackson County?
I was born in Hayesville.
Well, Billie Jean here is from Hayesville.
What's her last name?
Kearns.
Kearns.
C-U-R-N-S. You're not related, are you?
No, I was Crawfords and Ledfords and all those people. Dr. Killian at Western Carolina, his father was our family doctor in Hayesville, and he delivered me and my sister both. And Dr. Killian had a brother who was an ophthalmologist in Franklin, and he fitted me my first pair of glasses.
How many students do you think were at Western Carolina Teachers College when you were there? About 400 students?
About 400.
It's a little bigger than that now.
It sure is.
I think we'll have our total enrollment with all our extended campuses now about 9,500, but we have about 1,500 freshmen, which is impressive.
I'm afraid to go up there, afraid I'll get lost.
Well, we're going to bring you up anyway.
Couldn't find my way around.
Well, one of the other things we wanted to ask, who was your greatest mentor when you were in college? Who gave
George Tracy helped me every way in the world he could. For some reason, he's just interested in trying to help me find my way. And that's what it was amounted to. I was sort of a lost soul, drifting around. I couldn't find a major. I tried business. I didn't like that. I tried a little of everything. Didn't like any of them, and they wouldn't offer a degree in music. So I just wore out the seat in Dean Bird's office and Dr. Hunter's office, and finally, after I was gone, they put a degree in music.
Why did you decide to go to Western Carolina?
It was only about 8 miles from where I lived, and I could go there. Well, I went there in 1938, and my dad arranged with the college for me to work on the farm during the summer, and I made enough money working on the farm to pay my way the first year. And after that, I had just one job after another job. I worked on the farm for 2 or 3 years, and then I worked on the campus, putting up telephone poles and stringing wire and trimming bushes and mowing grass and all. But it came back to that farm. We had a cannery on the farm, canned all the food just about the college ate during the winter. We canned carrots and corn and beans and all sorts of things, put them up in gallon cans, and some of the guys knew how to milk a cow, and they had a whole big bunch of dairy cows there, and they milked the cows and got enough cream and butter and stuff to keep the kids fed all winter long. And,
that sounds like a good plan. I think that might be.
It was a heck of a good plan. I paid my way. I don't remember ever paying any money to the college. They always kept the records, and I always had enough money in reserve there to pay my way.
Now, you talked a little bit about Mr. Tracy and him being a mentor to you, but
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about him. What was he like, and was he involved at all in your first halftime show?
Was he what?
Did he get involved at all in your first halftime show?
Well, he supported me in everything and let me do it. He gave me permission to do it, and but he pretty much left me alone to do it my way.
Well, that's probably a good way to learn.
I did all sorts of things to help the teachers, including trips to Dillsboro on weekends, get them a little bottle of White Lightning or something like that, and take it back to them up there. I had an A model Ford called FMA, and I hauled kids back and forth to school and all, and then I made those little runs to Dillsboro. You know, the people that sold the alcohol in those days was the Turpin family, and Jim Turpin was the chief of police, and all his brothers were deputies, and they also sold bootleg liquor down there at Dillsboro, and so it kept me pretty busy hauling booze back for the teachers.
We're involved in raising a little money right now to go to the Rose Bowl
I
parade,
know.
but maybe we could tap into your resources there and start doing that. Just to ask you a couple of things about your feelings about some things that are going on now. You know, the band was presented with the Sudler Trophy, which is really the ultimate award that a college marching band can receive. How do you feel about that?
I just think it's a wonderful thing. You need something to measure quality by. You got to have a yardstick to base it on some way. You can't just open the door and let everybody that wants to go in there. You got to have some way to measure the quality of a band. I think it's a good way to do it.
Well, we're on January 1st, 2011, we're going to be in Pasadena, California.
I never dreamed that would ever happen.
That makes two on this couch that think
Well,
the same
I'll tell
thing.
you, boy, you've done a job.
Well, I appreciate that, but you know, none of this happens without somebody getting it started. And that's what's exciting to us, is to be able to find out a little bit about how that did happen. You know, you were actually instrumental in this getting started. One of the things that the students wanted to know were, when you did your show, you told us a while ago you learned a few things out of the book, but did you write any of this on paper? Did you put anything down, or did you just sort of?
Just did it in my head. I didn't know you put things on paper back then. See, I've still never had any instruction in how to be a band director.
It was just second nature.
They never got around to that. I studied some harmony and theory, but you know, I got the idea that nobody on the faculty knew much about harmony and theory. Mrs. Fisher was a real great Eastman graduate fiddle player, and she could really play a violin. And she taught quite a few kids to play violins, and enough to keep a little orchestra going. Mr. Tracy was a great piano player, and he took a year off and went back and studied piano some more. I think possibly got an advanced degree. And he was just real good at the piano.
Where was the music department then? Where did
it was in the basement of the Huey building. By the way, we played for the dedication when Clyde Huey came up there and dedicated his building, or they dedicated it to him or whatever. He was governor then, and we played for the ceremony with the
Well, that's
band.
something I never knew. I didn't know two things. I didn't know that he came to dedicate it, but secondly, I wondered when you started in the basement of Huey. When I was in school, that's where the music department was.
Yeah, and you might have been there the day I brought John Clemmer up there to try out for
I don't
clarinet.
think so. I don't think so.
The only student that I ever took up there to try out for clarinet or anything was John Clemmer. And he tried out and he didn't make it. So he joined the Navy, and he played for 20 years at the academy and the band up there.
Well, we've been known to make some mistakes in the selection process before.
He was rated as one of the 12 top clarinet players in the Navy while he was in there. And he really turned that thing inside out.